I am done being some bean counters victim. I am just going to start up my own thing. Everything in business is a risk. Good governance and good risk management, to me, are accelerators. My insurance bill every year is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because we're working with companies where we need to have tens of millions of dollars worth of indemnification.
Like, how is SureStep different?
I operate on the principle of, we're going to do this quickly, we're going to do it accurately, we're going to do it at a fair cost.
Without, I'll say, throwing some names. What do you think? What are the biggest mistakes that they do when it comes to handling this?
AIs make mistakes, right? They're not perfect. They're just like people. People who understand how things are built never go out of style. There's a big difference between making toys and making real tools.
Hello everyone. Today's guest has spent decades helping some of the world's largest organizations navigating through enterprise transformation, governance, risk, and compliance, witnessing firsthand how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way organizations operate and make decisions. Now, through Onyx AI Labs, Michael is helping organizations enter the AI era by building incredible production-grade AI systems. I'm sure that there is a lot to learn from this podcast. I just want to start, Michael. First of all, I just want to thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Not often I get an opportunity to talk with somebody who have decades of experience in this field. So thank you so much.
It's not that many people are as old as I am. That's kind of the problem, right? So there you go. but no, happy to be here, and really appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, it's always you always got to show some gratitude and appreciate when you have an opportunity that somebody takes your work seriously, no matter how long you've been in business. So I appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael. Now, before obviously talking about SureStep and Onyx AI Labs, I first want to know more about you. For the viewers who are watching you for the very first time, just please tell us a bit about yourself, like why entrepreneurship, why business.
Yeah, sure. So really it was more a cataclysmic series of accidents. Is really how I ended up as an entrepreneur, which is probably not a strange story among entrepreneurs. I had been, came out of school, had a couple different degrees, and weird stuff, 3D animation from U of T of all things, photonics from Rochester Institute of Technology, machine languages, a real weird mix of things that really kind of just things that were interesting to me. And I ended up working for Adobe for a few years, which was wonderful. Got me a lot of training in software development and how to structure information, which was great. And I spent 3 years on a trading desk. I worked for Fujifilm, kind of been all over the place. 2 cows at one point. And then I went through this really weird period where I got laid off like 3 times in 3 years. And it was just brutal. And I finally said, all right, I am done being some bean counters victim. I am just going to start up my own thing. And prior to that, I had started my own stuff on the side, essentially building process management stuff, automation stuff online. So kind of think ServiceNow, but using Drupal, right, as a basic web CMS technology. And I was building that for clinical research organizations, and it went very, very well. So essentially, we had a mini Documentum that we'd built out, so document management and process management solution. And lo and behold, somebody liked it enough that they wanted to pay me for it. So we built it out, got our first money, and then around the same time, this was around 2008-ish, the global financial meltdown was happening, right? And I had a friend of mine who happened to be working for OpenPages, which was a Boston-based company before IBM bought them. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm working for OpenPages. And what's that? He goes, it's a governance, risk, and compliance company. I'm going, what's governance, risk, and compliance?
Exactly.
I had no idea.
You came from 3D animation.
I came from a whole other area, right? A whole other world. So anyways, he happened to be flying by my house. He stopped in Toronto, stayed at my place, showed me what it was. And like I said, that thing's ugly. My God. I mean, we built something that does the exact same stuff, except it looks better. It's just different labels on the fields. And effectively it was because, OpenPages, a good GRC platform, is really a document management and process management tool. That's what it is. So anyways, me being, cocky as I am, I decided, well, I'm going to build my own. So I did. I built my own and built my own on Drupal, and it looked good and it worked well and everything else. And I had a friend of mine who worked over at HSBC over in London, and he said, "Hey, Mike, come on over and show me your new tool." And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I go over and I show him, and it's like, "Hey, take a look at this. What do you think?" He goes, "It's amazing." So of course, first thing out of my head is like, "Oh, well, geez, how many millions are you going to give me? I'm going to make it rich now." And of course, the guy goes, "Mike, there's two people in your company. We cannot buy this from you," right? So I was left in this position, sitting there kind of going, "Oh, you mean that's a risk?" And, "Oh, yeah, okay." So I knew how to build software, but I didn't know anything about GRC.
Exactly.
And so, but that said, given the state of the world at that time, because that financial meltdown, many of you are young enough to really not really remember that at all, but like it was brutal. I mean, the entire world, actually, really, other than Canada, was smacked down, and that was because Stephen Harper and Michael Flaherty did such a great job of keeping us isolated from it. But I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. Nothing, but I could see that demand for, this kind of system and these kinds of services was only going to expand. I mean, the whole world had just been slapped. They were going to make sure it didn't happen again. So I started my due diligence and started my journey to learn more about GRC. And part of that was figuring out, all right, we got to find a company to partner with that already knows something about this so we can get off the ground. And we looked at a couple of different companies at the time, that were still around, like Archer was there and Metric Stream and a few others, and we settled on IBM. And this was a pretty good choice, and they had a good partner program, and we were able to learn and find out more things. And here we are, like 18 years later.
Yeah,
and
2 decades.
We've done open pages work all over the world, 26 different countries at this point. And all kinds of industries. So anyways, that was the genesis of it, how I got into
Thank you
our
so
own
much
business.
for sharing your journey though. It's really inspiring. I just want to ask you, for the viewers who are basically hearing these terms, governance, risk, and compliance for the very first time. First of all, if you can answer in short that what are these terms, and then I'll say, why do you actually felt that these are very, very critical for any organization?
No, they're maybe the most critical part of any organization, because everything else is window dressing. This is what makes everything work, right? So a risk, to do anything in business, you have to take a risk, right? I'm going to invest in something is a risk. I am going to build a new product. That is a risk. I'm going to go make a sales call. That is a risk. It's sales, it's time, money, whatever. So everything in business is a risk. So how do you manage that, right? Well, you have to have certain criteria around how you manage risk, and how you do it, and how your risk appetite and how you decide you're going to pursue business is a really critical thing for your organization. There's very risk-averse organizations. There's very, hey, let's go. SpaceX, hey, YOLO, let's go, right? A typical, reinsurance company is going to be extremely conservative in how they underwrite things. So that risk appetite and how you do it and how you manage it, and then how you manage risk to your organization, right? Operational risk, like enterprise risk. An earthquake hits our office in Malaysia. Okay, how do we respond to that? Who needs to know? Who needs to call the insurance? How do we make sure the people are safe? All that. How you react to risks and risks that happen to your business and how you prepare for that, that's risk management, okay? Compliance is, generally speaking, a regulatory function. So the government is going to say, you are a bank. Thou shalt keep this much money aside for operational risk exposure, right? How well you manage that risk and how much you can prove to the government that you are managing it effectively allows that pool of money to be higher, which means that you have more money to invest. And then of course, that part of compliance also means you're showing the regulator, hey, all the rules you've given us, AI governance rules, like OSFI 23 is the new one, right? GDPR in Europe has been a very famous one, made a lot of noise about GDPR. There's tens of thousands of regulations out there that industries have to comply with. And compliance is the act of saying, hey, not only have we heard what you have to say as a government regulatory agency, here's what we are going to do to fix that, and here's our proof that we are managing it. Right? So those are the two key parts. I hear you. Here's the actions we're going to take. Here's how we are going to take that action and prove it to you. And then each regulator needs a defense memo that says, hey, we've proven now we have done this. Here we go. And then you have your last part of it, which is governance. How do you run your business? Okay. Governance is simply, how do you run your business? What are the internal standards that you apply to yourself as an organization? And it gets overlooked dramatically a lot of the times as its importance to an organization. A lot of companies see GRC as an afterthought. It's a cost center. I don't want to spend money on that. It's not going to my bottom line. However, it can drastically increase your value as an organization, right? And by that, if I take a look at two startups and I'm a private equity guy or I'm a venture capitalist, an angel investor, and I'm looking for places to put my money. And let's say I've got FinTech A and I got FinTech B. They both do pretty much the same thing. They got catchy names, cool marketing, neat branding. Hey, they've got lots of marketing dollars, but fundamentally they're just like a bunch of kids in their basement, like you feed them pizza under the door and Jolt Cola, don't feed them after midnight, that kind of stuff. However, company A has a good governance program. They understand the threats to their business. They have a plan to mitigate those. They understand process. Maybe they've got a proper SDLC process in place for software development, and the other guys are just kind of they're vibe coding bros, right? Like the Instagram bros that you see out there vibe coding. These guys, on the other hand, they're actually following proper process. If I'm a PE guy or a venture cap or an angel investor or even institutional investor, where am I going to put my money?
Obviously, who are taking the GRC seriously.
Absolutely, right? And unfortunately, most companies don't. It's usually the last thing that people kind of pay attention to. And of course, AI has changed that very dramatically now because the speed at which you can iterate and the speed at which things are happening is just going that much quicker, right? And a lot of it is a lot of vibe coding bros who've got no idea about process or no idea about controls, no idea about governance. And they all think, hey, what's the latest one? We're going to lock our rooms in a hotel room and not come out until we make $1 million. You guys are going to be there a long time. Right. So anyways, that's what governance, risk, and compliance are. Probably about as briefly as they could adequately
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure that there's a lot to learn from what you just explained, because these are the terms, as you just mentioned, they are just taken like, okay, that's something like GRC, but, not many people take it seriously, but I mean, they don't realize the value of it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm sure that after hearing this, they might.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much, Michael. So I just I'll say now ask you more about GRC in general.
Yeah.
Don't you think is it easier for the company just to show that, hey, we are following proper governance, we are following proper compliance? In fact, they are not doing that. They are just showing that just to, convince their investors that we are right on the
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So we call that in the industry, we call that compliance theater, right? And there are many, many companies who they do it because they have to, right? They don't do it because they want to be better corporate citizens, right? They do it because they have to, right? The companies that are best at it are ones that take it seriously and use it as a way to make their businesses better, right? Ultimately, good governance and good risk management, to me, are accelerators. If I do that right, and I'm paying attention to my obligations, and I'm doing that proactively, I'm not going to get any surprises down the road. I understand how much I can risk. I understand what processes are not optimal and how they can be optimized. And I think that's really the key thing, especially with governance, that people totally forget about, is that ultimately it's about managing your processes effectively.
Exactly.
Right? And that process can everything from accounts receivable and payable through to your software lifecycle development systems, through to your HR onboarding and offboarding process. How do you screen candidates, right? I do that governance piece right. Maybe I mitigate the risk of bringing on an employee who is going to hurt us, or somebody who's going to waste our time, or somebody who's only going to be here for a short amount of time. Maybe it helps me get the best candidate. Maybe it allows me to pick the best vendors to work with, right? It ensures we're not going to partner up with a vendor who's going to disappear next week in the middle of a critical rollout, right? I know for us, because like when we work with large enterprise, like banks or insurance companies or whatever, we work with a lot of like global Fortune 1000s, right? And when we work with those guys, our onboarding process is unbelievable. I mean, if you were a small company and you're kind of looking at it saying, oh my God, why are they asking for this? I mean, they're asking for everything. I mean, they want every bit of your financials. They want to know everything about what your insurance look like. I mean, my insurance bill every month every year is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we're working with companies where we need to have tens of millions of dollars worth of indemnification, right? All that process, smaller companies tend to just gloss it over and skip by it. But what it also means, we're also SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, right? Which is a huge process to go through. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. That is proof of our governance processes.
Okay.
That is what SOC and ISO certifications do. They're essentially saying you have proven to a series of auditors that you have good governance. And that's really what it means, right? So,
but then at SureStep, you founded SureStep almost 2 decades ago.
Yes.
So what actually a gap was, you basically figured out that, hey, there's a gap in the system and I want to basically do a particular thing differently. Like, how is SureStep different?
Well, there's the cheeky answer, and then there's the real answer, right?
Okay.
So the cheeky answer is the one I normally give. So there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD, right? Is a pretty common term in business, right? And a lot of people like to sell on that. I don't. I'm not very good at that. It smells too much of bullshit, frankly, and I don't like it very much. However, there are plenty of consulting firms out there and system integrators out there. They don't need to be named. They're big. Sometimes there's 4 or more of them, but then you've got your big GSIs,
Okay.
and they tend to try to use FUD to get people to buy their services. I operate on the principle of, we're going to do this quickly, we're going to do it accurately, we're going to do it at a fair cost. And I'm not here to get you a 10-year never-ending engagement that's just going to leave you angry and feeling like you're on the hook with us. In 18 years of being in business, every single client we've ever had, I can call for a reference. I don't know anybody else who can do that. Certainly none of those other guys can. So it all comes down to, and I know this sounds like very basic MBA stuff, but you provide value, people will keep coming back. So the gap for us in the market was, especially in these spaces, dealing with the big Fortune 1000s, big financial institutions. They were pretty much on a daily basis getting screwed by a lot of these organizations. A lot of snake oil sales is the expression we use. Snake oil salesmen. A lot of stuff that was not being delivered. They would engage somebody, not get what they expected. And I said, we can do this and give them good value. And that was the whole premise for it, really.
Got it. So obviously you've spent years in advising companies how to manage risk.
Yes.
Like without I'll say, throwing some names. What do you think? What are the biggest mistakes that they do when it comes to handling this?
Underestimating it because it makes their bottom line look better.
Now traditionally compliance is something that has been handled manually. Now AI is in picture. Now, what do you think? How will be, the new generation of GRC look like?
Boy, we got some cool products on. No, but I'm not going to do that. We've got, so obviously we've been involved in this for quite some time. And in fact, one of the early genesis of AI governance was really around machine learning data, right? So before anybody talked about AI, right, we've had machine learning for decades, right? Same when people started talking about cloud. Well, outsourced computing has been around since the 50s, right? So, it's nothing new. AI really isn't all that new, just the way we're consuming it as LLMs. And of course, pretty much since the beginning of this year, call it last October to January of 2025 to early 2026, we saw that big jump in the quality of what AI could do and what it could produce. So it started off very much as like getting your data right? Make sure that the data that's going into your machine language system is going to be correct. AI now is the driver, right? Rather than the recipient of that governance, right? It's still a very big deal to get your data right. I can tell you straight up, for anybody who's watching this, any project you'll ever do at the enterprise level, number one thing is going to be get your data right first. And if you don't have that right first, everything else is going to suck no matter how much AI you want to throw at it. The other part I would say that too is that right now everybody's looking at AI like it's a hammer and are therefore saying every problem is a nail, right? It's not, all right? Having good data, good process, those are more important than having AI. Okay.
Got it.
And that is a simple fact, right?
Got it.
AIs make mistakes, right? They're not perfect. They're just like people. And in fact, some of the statistics that I've seen recently, if somebody was going to use Claude to generate a control, right, a risk control or something, or do a risk control self-assessment, Claude would get it right 74 to 77% of the time. A human being gets it right about 80% of the time. So, take your pick, but specialized systems like ours will get it right 97% of the time, right? So that's a big difference, especially if we're talking about a few $1 billion worth of fines. So part of it is you're going to see more people trying to use AI to do the 2 parts of compliance. That intake piece, which is there's a change in the market. It can be a new regulation, it can be a new requirement, it can be a new way of buying things, right? Like I said, an example would be like, I'm going to build a credit card, right? I got a new credit card product and I'm going to use a chat bot for people to apply, or a mortgage or whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to use an AI chat bot for people to apply for that. That's a new market condition. People didn't used to do that. You used to walk into the branch, walk in with all your docs and all your, a box of your financial statements and whatever. Here you go. Here's all the paper and fun through it and look at you scowling and say, maybe we'll give you money. And Now, so you just go through the chatbot and it instantly says yes or no. That's a problem, right? Because now you've got an AI deciding if you get that or not, right? So what's the risk to the bank? Well, it's a couple of them, right? You got regulatory risk like E23. Is that chatbot being fair? Is that chatbot going to deny your application because you're a recent immigrant and have an established credit? Is it going to deny you because of your address? Is it going to deny you because of your education? You have a right under ES 323 and AI governance regulation to have that explained to you. So now a bank has to come up with a mechanism for, okay, somebody's going to get denied. How do we do this? How do we explain this to them, right? So you need an AI that is going to be able to, keep track on all the latest regulations and then make that jump and that bridge that gap between here's what the regulation is saying I need to have as an organization. And then B, that whole piece of does this thing actually do what it says it's going to do? And I got to prove it. I have to prove it, right? So those are the two pieces. One, I know what I have to do. Two, I have to prove that I can do it. And those are the two pieces that come together to show a regulator that yes, you are compliant.
But then let's say, what if an AI makes a bad decision? You know, like let's say if it causes a legal, financial, or human harm, then who is responsible? Like the company using it, the company who built it, or let's say the regulators.
Well, as far as the regulator is concerned, it's the bank, or it's the insurance
company using it.
It's whoever is putting that out to the user, right? And in fact, I literally on Monday I had a conversation with a software company that makes AI systems for other for companies. And they're saying, yeah, we got to be regulated as well. But you don't technically. Like they don't need regulation. However, their customers are perfectly free to come back and sue them for malpractice or something if they want to, right? But again, they've all got indemnification clauses or whatever. But that's a really pertinent question, right? Because people are going to go looking for it. So right now, the regulators are saying to their banks or whoever whoever's got an obligation for them, they're saying, hey, you got to be responsible for this. This is yours. If you're going to put it out there to the public, you are responsible for it. So you're the last mile to the public. So you're responsible.
But then don't you think that obviously they are putting out there to the public, but they are not, they are obviously not that educated when it comes to how the system was built.
Absolutely.
It's the company who builds it who knows.
Absolutely.
How is the system running? So
at least you better pick your vendors right. Third-party risk management, right? Make sure your vendor risk management is good, right? Pick a reputable company. Pick somebody who knows what they're going to do. Somebody's going to indemnify you, all the other stuff, right? So those are other parts of good governance, right? Risk management, right? So, and that's a big problem right now, right? Because a lot of companies are selling systems or selling pieces of this, and it's also probably why you've seen like companies like IBM and SAS that we work with, they're very cautious about going into this for those reasons, right? It's not that they don't have the capability. I mean, IBM has been doing Watson for years, right? I mean, we've all heard of IBM Watson, right? And SAS has got their products as well. SAS is one of the most respected data companies on the planet. But they're very cautious about this. And in the meantime, you get everybody else saying, Claude this, OpenAI this, do this, Copilot this. And everybody's losing their minds. And like, they're turning out crap. And so a lot of them have gone and said, well, we're going to get our own development groups. All those development groups don't necessarily have experience in this. They've been building like banking transactional systems. And that's not the same thing. So that's a very murky place right now. And this kind of all falls under AI governance, right? Which is, how are we governing this thing? Well, that starts with, how are you building it?
Yeah.
Why are you building it?
Yeah.
How are you building it?
Yeah.
What's the data look like? What's the data lineage on this thing? Where are you getting the original data to fuel the model that you're putting together here? All of those things. How are you training the model? Are you training it enough? I was talking to a client the other day that had built a custom RAG system for one of their LLMs, and they had essentially 200 training pairs. Like 200 training pairs is like my models have about 300,000, and now I feel confident I've got something good, right? And this is one of the things that Onyx makes, and I feel confident that's good. Clients don't get that though, and they don't. And why would they? They're not engineers.
Exactly.
So, and this is where it's getting very complicated, right? So
But most of your time, obviously, you dedicate it, to prevent things from going wrong.
Yes.
Now, how do you convince executives when you pitch your products? Like, what are the biggest things that they misunderstand, about, let's say, integrating AI into their business?
Oh boy. So there's two key misconceptions, right? In less sophisticated companies, we will get questions like, I just want a system that's going to do my GRC for me.
Exactly.
And there's no such thing, right? You need to train an AI in what your business is, right? I mean, if you're a shipping company, having a financial data set, for your GRC stuff isn't going to help you very much, right? We have an instance like that. One of our clients is a shipping management company, and they essentially manage about 1,000 large ships around the world, container ships, LNG ships, bulk, whatever. And like for them, when we're designing a risk management program, it can be anti-piracy. It can be what happens if we hit a reef? What happens if we don't have the right people insured? What if we crash into a port? Right? That's a very different scenario than like, what if we didn't maintain our operational risk volumes this week and now we got to come up with more capital to set aside for operational risk failures. That's a very different thing, right? And so yeah, you're absolutely right. And the biggest so that's the one thing is like people are like, hey, it's going to do GRC for us. Nothing's going to do GRC for you all on its own, right? That's just not going to happen. The best you can hope for is you can automate a lot of it, right? And then the other part of it is, how is this going to save us money or cut people? Right? The large organizations are all asking that. We see it in the news all the time.
Yeah.
Meta very famously sent everybody home for a work from home day last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, and then let go 8,000 people Thursday night at 3 a.m. in the morning. You're like, what a bunch of jerks. Zuckerberg, if you're listening to this, you're a jerk. But either way, it's a horrible way to treat people. Anyways, it doesn't need to be that way. Now, the catch is, can it save you money? Can it reduce people in headcount? Yeah, it can. That's a fact. If you do it right and you do it properly and you have the right safeguards in place, there's just simply a time to answer, time to solution that you cannot meet any other way. A traditional way of managing a regulatory change. Regulator will release it on a Monday. Here's a new rule. Okay. Lawyer picks it up sometime that week, right? Or team of lawyers picks it up, right? One of my big insurance companies in the US was like this. They had hundreds of lawyers on staff. Their whole job is to read regulations, and then work with the compliance team or the risk team to build out controls and build out processes to mitigate any risk from that regulation. That would take months.
Exactly.
Months. And you're paying professionals hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the compliance guys, for the lawyers, high hundreds of thousands of dollars. And all they're doing is reading a law and coming up with a control. My stuff will do that in about 30 seconds or less.
Then
it will cite that regulation and give you a crypto receipt saying, hey, this thing actually meets all of these standards on this date with this version of the rule. And by the way, here's your defense memo for the compliance guy. That's going to be really hard for people to say, we need to keep more people to do that.
So basically, is that something, obviously most of the executives these days are confused as whether they should use AI off the shelf or they should, basically use a custom built AI which is properly integrated to their system.
Yep.
So are you saying that custom built AI tool is the only way?
It depends what you're trying to do, right? I mean, I've used just about every AI tool on the planet over the last, 18 months. Mostly just out of curiosity, right? It's really funny when you talk to different models. If you've played with a lot of them, you'll learn they have different personalities and different things they're good at, right? Currently, a lot of our stuff are on local hosted models, right? We're actually in the midst of building out a company brain right now for SureStep, right? That's got all of our RFP information and all of our sales stuff and all that. So we can effectively manage that far better. There's always going to be a room for a frontier model if you're trying to do something complex. So deep research, or you want something that's, like I still use Claude in Word, right? I don't use Copilot, but I stopped using Copilot, but I use Claude in Word, like those extensions, and I use it in PowerPoint, and I use it in Excel, and it's wonderful. It saves me a lot of work. Like, oh, geez, can I just throw another column in? Oh yeah, hey Claude, throw that column in. Oh, wonderful, right? Calculate the numbers. Oh, great. I don't have to go and copy paste that from Excel anymore. Great. It'll do all this, and that's great. And I think there's always going to be a place for that, right? However, the open weight models are getting so much better every day. Every single day. They're just taking leaps and bounds. And it's not just the Chinese models, like RC Trinity, NVIDIA NVIDIA Nematron is a phenomenal, like North American Western model, but DeepSeek, Kimi, Zai AI, Quen, especially as a local model, is phenomenal. It's really good. So to me, there's always going to be a space for that kind of like bigger model. But if you want something specialist, like in our case, we build specialized LLMs that do regulatory compliance. They are designed for that. I have over 300,000 data points in that thing that prove that it's good. And I can achieve a 20% higher accuracy rate than a frontier model because I've specialized it. So I would suggest you're going to need a bit of both.
Oh.
All right. I think there's definitely room for the big guys, but I'm not sure it's going to be like OpenAI or Claude down the road, to be honest, because they're just SaaS wrappers. Honestly, they don't even own their own infrastructure. So I mean, you look at the guys like Microsoft and Google and SpaceX who own all their own infrastructure. They've got a massive opportunity and a massive advantage in the market. And I would say, and NVIDIA's in the same boat. Like their Nematron models, you're going to hear a lot more about them over the years. They're coming, So, anyways, that's.
Yeah, but then at SureStep, you are already doing good. You are doing good, I'll say. You could have focused on this business as well. Then why did you feel a need, to basically open Onyx AI Labs?
Oh, good question. So SureStep, as I mentioned previously, we're a SOC 2 Type 2 certified organization. For a lot of our organizations, we actually host and manage their GRC systems. So, for example, we have a client who's bank, we will host open pages for them. In one case, that's for 65,000 users in 52 countries, 9 languages, 24/7 support, all that. So we actually host, run, manage all the data, ingress, egress into the system, all the IO changes, everything. So we do all that stuff. The catch is when you are a SOC 2 Type 2 certified organization, there's a lot of process involved, right? A lot of governance, right? And for me to experiment and build things with AI the way I needed to be free of those shackles. It's really what it came down to. I could not do that in that environment. And because it was mostly experimental stuff, not even things I necessarily thought I was ever going to sell to anybody. It was just like, I got to learn about this, right? Because AI initiatives need to come from the top down. They don't work any other way, especially in a small company. So I had to go and learn about this and become an expert on it myself. So that was my playground. That let me go and play is what it came down to. And that's why I had to do it separately. Now, lo and behold, of course, because of my experience and my knowledge and everything else, I start building out a regulatory specific or GRC specific LLM was a very natural play for me. I had enough knowledge. I knew what I needed. I knew where to get the data. I had the data and everything else. So that made a lot of sense, right? And we got a few other things coming down in the next month or so that are coming out that are going to be really cool. Like we got our, some things that plug into. They don't replace a GRC system, but they make some parts of it way better. So that's why we ended up doing that. But that's why Onyx ended up being a separate company, just simply because unless I wanted to take my COO and have her beat me up, and Stacy could do that on a bad day, if I got on her wrong side. So I couldn't do that. So I said, hey, just go play with this on myself over here, and then I don't need to worry about it.
Now, obviously we are in Canada now. Coming to Canada, where do you see the biggest opportunity when it comes to AI?
So, oh boy, politics, fun. Canada has, I'm probably going to sound like an Albertan here, I would think. But Canada's got more resources than anybody on the planet, right? We've got more hydro, we've got more mineral wealth, we've got more oil and gas wealth, we've got everything here. We've got more tidal power if we wanted to just do it. Anybody else? We got the biggest coastline on the planet. Lots of solar. We could do anything we want. Wind farms, lots of parts of the country. I mean, we got more energy here than anybody, right? Other than Elon, who's putting up his satellites now, his data center satellites. We're in a position where we should be leading the world in this stuff, right? We really should be leading the world. And in the meantime, we've got other countries out there, who are making concerted plays in this. Like if you look at the Middle East right now, they're making massive plays in AI. In fact, in October, I'm over to AI Anything over in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi for that, which is going to be doing that over there. So Canada does a great job of crippling itself and tying its own feet together before it starts a race. And, whether it's with regulation or taxation or whatever, it really makes things difficult. Right now, I there's a good standard of living here, but it's very expensive. It is not, your tax rates on your first $500,000 of income as a startup, pretty good. It's like 12%. Your take-home income is going to be terrible. And the taxation situation here is really in a position where this should not be anybody's first choice as a place to come and start up a business. You would have to be very foolish to think that this is a place you want to start up if you have choices. I was born here. I was raised here. My wife was, moved here when she was 14 from Hong Kong. My kids were born here. If I were to start from scratch and say, hey, I've got my choice of countries to go to, and I want to start up a business, this would be very near the bottom of the list. By the time taxes are done here, I mean, you're more than half your money is going to the government. Okay. So that's a fact. And,
that's a significant reason you feel?
Oh, it's a major problem. I'm debating every day. I've got a U.S. entity and I've got a Singapore entity as well. I would be much smarter to move all of my money through, we call Singapore my head office and run everything there. So it's challenging. And, it's very difficult to tell anybody that, hey, I want to invest in a company. Okay, well, your capital gains tax is going to be 29%. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
You want to invest your money in the UAE, right, in their stuff. And guess what? No tax. Hey, guess what? I just made double my investment. 30% more on my investment, right? So, I mean, it's basic math that for some reason, well, that's why elected officials, I guess, get elected. They can't do anything else, I guess. So, anyways.
So, always hope for the best.
So, sorry if that disappoints anybody, but that's the way it is.
I get it. Now moving to NVIDIA,
yes,
I'll say a powerful company.
Yes,
most of the AI infrastructure these days are now coming from NVIDIA. It powers one of the most advanced AI systems.
100%.
Now, do you think is it healthier for this AI economy to just have one company build every AI infrastructure, or do you think competition will someday do a good job in reducing this concentration of power?
Well, I mean, look, I think a monopoly, and they are effectively a monopoly, even if they are a benign one, in my opinion. Like we're an NVIDIA Inception partner, so we're on their startup track, and they haven't invested in us yet, so I'm free to say whatever I want. Of course, if I say the wrong thing, maybe they never will, but who knows? But the bottom line is, NVIDIA as a partner is it's daunting, right? I mean, they're a multi-trillion-dollar company, right? They got $1 trillion in business coming in this year. It's wild. I think for an industry to get started, I think it's absolutely vital to have a monopoly like that.
Okay.
They've been able to build a standard and get this off the ground. Think about it, like 5 years ago, hey, I just want a really good NVIDIA video card for my gaming rig, right? That's how people thought of NVIDIA, right? They were smart enough to realize, hey, there's more to this. Exactly. And this AI thing is coming, and we're going to grab it, and we're going to take it and just run with it. They've been brilliant at it. Good for them. And I've got a tremendous amount of respect for them as an organization. And Jensen Huang as a human being and everybody else. I think they're a great company. There will be more that are going to come along. We can already see Intel starting to do some more things, right? They got massive funding from the U.S. government, but then they also got agreements with Apple and a couple of other ones. They're going to start making their presence felt. AMD is releasing their little boxes over the next while. They're coming out end of July, I think. They've got their little desktop AI systems, which are very similar to the NVIDIA Sparks, which I love, by the way. They're amazing. But they're coming out. So competition is coming, right? But somebody has to lead the way. And honestly, somebody needs to be big enough, nasty enough, and strong enough that they're just going to say, this is the way we're going to do it. Come with us, and we're going to pull you along. And that's what NVIDIA's done, right? No lead is insurmountable over time, right? And, the tortoise and the hare and whatever we want to say, Intel and AMD were the hares here. And they're starting to make those moves, and I think that's great. You see the same stuff like Elon, right? I mean, with SpaceX, I mean, they're taking the lead in this, right? And, even Jeff Bezos is like, oh, geez, we blew up another one. Oops. I mean, you need somebody who's going to say, I don't care what the rest of the world thinks. I'm going to do it this way. And you can come along or not. I don't care. And he did it with Tesla. He's doing it with SpaceX. He's doing it to a lesser extent with Grok and whatever. But I think NVIDIA has had the same attitude, right? They saw an opportunity. They've morphed their company to meet that opportunity. and have grown it unbelievably since then.
But then,
So
what do you think about Jensen Huang as an entrepreneur?
I think he's awesome. He bakes cookies. I mean, come on. Right? He turns them into chips. I don't know how he does that. It's amazing. Cookie dough to microchips. I don't know how he does it. I mean, like I think he's a neat guy. I mean, like he's the original, immigration success story in the U.S. Right? I mean, like, his family is very native Taiwan. He's been an amazing guy, an amazing human being, and he doesn't use his powers for evil. He's not like Mark Zuckerberg, who like I said, hey guys, take Friday off permanently, which is horrible. I mean, he seems by all accounts, at least public persona, I've never had dinner with the guy, but I mean, seems like a decent guy, and the people at NVIDIA seem like good people, and they're on a mission, to bring this to the world.
Doing a good job.
And I think they're doing okay. And again, I that's a surface level. It's not like we golf together or anything, but I mean, the company seems like a decent one to work with. So
now, when it comes to AI, what do you think, has been your biggest, what do you think will be, what is your prediction when it comes to AI? Like, this prediction will actually achieve success in future. And then one prediction, you feel that it is just overhyped.
So I think right now, okay, this is kind of fun because if you're like me and you've had a lot of lonely nights in front of an AI and a screen, you'll sit down and every now and again you start asking like a random question, right? Hey, are you really alive? Or whatever, and they'll come back and say, well, I'm programmed to act like I am, and you kind of sit back and say, well, duh. Yeah, I mean, but you can also say it about people, right? We're biologically programmed, it's just not bits and bytes. It's not a bit of code, but I mean, we react to what our hormones do. We react to what our DNA tells us to do. We react to genetics. I mean, like it's whether it's that or whatever. If it's reacting to stimuli, which it does, I type in something, it gives me back an answer. It's doing something, right? I think there's I think a couple of the guys who are really big right now, I personally think they're going to disappear. I think 5 years from now, nobody's going to know who OpenAI or Anthropic are. I think they're going to be gone. I don't see. I see all the other LLM companies coming for them. I see NVIDIA, especially with Nematron, RC Trinity, which is also funded by a lot of big North American companies. They're building really good models. Cohere here in Canada build great models. We're a Cohere partner. They got some phenomenal stuff, especially if you're in a regulated industry. Cohere makes brilliant stuff. There's other companies coming for them. And if you get right down to it, they're reaching the limits of what you can really train an AI on. Like, do I really need a 1.5 trillion parameter model? No, I really don't. I don't care. I don't care what somebody's earwax looks like under ultraviolet light. I don't care. It's just, it doesn't matter. And the problem is that they're training themselves on the first level of internet information, right? Not digging in, this is why specialized AIs exist, right? This is why I can create a specialized regulatory thing, because all of that stuff always exists behind sign-ins and logins and everything else. Those guys can't get there. So what do we see on the internet today? How much of this is AI slop, as they call it, right? It's growing every day. So now what are they doing? They're learning essentially their own stuff, right? So there's a limit to how much a frontier model can really expand by reading the internet. It just can't, right? And then if you look at what is making them useful, well, if I look at Claude Code, right, which in January was like it was February 5th, I think they released, of course, took over the whole world. And it was like, oh, Claude Code is going to change the world, blah, 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 right? And people started using Claude Code. It was a great tool. It was amazing. It started to get expensive all of a sudden, right? It started to get really expensive all of a sudden. I went from like, hey, I'm paying $20 a month for this cool tool to like, holy shit, 10 grand. And wow, right? And that's what happened. Like literally in my case, right? And I can use open code. It's free. I can plug that into even if I just want to use like in Nematron. I mean, I'm going to be paying, pennies on the dollar relative to what, the big frontier guys like Claude and OpenAI are doing. So I start using those kinds of tools, and now now I can start really, do I care about Claude? Do I care about Codex? I mean, no. I mean, open code's fine. Does everything. And now of course, we've just seen that the only way they could distinguish themselves was they claimed, and I'm going to say claim because I actually don't buy it, they claim that their models were bigger, better every time they release something. Opus 4.7 to 4.8, honestly, they just talked more. They burned more tokens. And hey, guess what? My bill went up. Who did that benefit? Right? Same thing when you're talking about, Codex 5.5. People say, oh, it's great. It does better accuracy on one.
Yeah.
And now you see all these guys saying, oh, guys, loop coding is the way to go. Like, who's paying your salary? Oh, guess what? It's some guy who works for Anthropic or some guy who works for, yeah, let's just keep it on overnight, guys. Keep those tokens pounding, right? And I don't see that as a rational way to do your business. I'm a small business. Was paying like 10 grand a month or whatever in tokens. Not crazy for the value that it gave me. I thought that was okay, but why would I pay that?
Exactly.
And, you know, I can bring local models and I can run them for 90% of, so
even more cheap.
So right now with our company brain project, you know, we're going to be using a local version of Quen 3.6, right? 35B, 3A. Great model, phenomenal model. And there's a lot of good ones out there. Like the Gemma models are phenomenal. The Nematron models are great. You know, Quen does some really great stuff. So those are all things that I'm using that locally now. I just build the harness out, and guess what? I can do all the same stuff that I can do with Claude or Code, or I could do with Codex. I've got all the same capability, and it does 90% of what I want. And if I do have a question where I need a deep reasoning on it, to be honest, right now, the best one is Kimmy. I'd use Kimmy, activate an agent swarm to go and do deep research. Here's what I want, big lump of stuff. Say, well, you got 24 different parameters we got to introduce. It's going to go out and create 24 agents, come back with a concise answer.
Yeah.
And it's far better quality research than I can get out of Opus or get out of Codex. And I'm going to be paying 75 cents per million tokens as opposed to,
exactly.
Was it now for 25 or 50 for Fable? They were trying to get for Fable. I mean, come on. You know, so anyways, so I think those guys, they're just trying to grab all the money they can so they can IPO, pocket their line their pockets, and then get out. Because at some point, Microsoft's going to come knocking at OpenAI and said, hey, that $38 billion we gave you, you're not making any money. We're taking you back. Anthropic is probably just going to get absorbed into Google or AWS, or somebody's just going to end up buying them out. But I mean, right now, it's a SaaS tool. It's a SaaS wrapper. I don't see they're going to be here. Long term, what I think is going to win are the companies that have their own infrastructure. Google can make chips. Google's got their own infrastructure. Microsoft can make their own chips. They've got their own infrastructure. SpaceX, they just bought Cursor. That's going to change the world for them because they now all of a sudden, like within the next month or so, will absolutely have the best coding platform on the planet because they just bought it and they're going to add that to Grok.
Exactly.
And they're going to have a monster on their hands. It's going to be amazing. So I'm as a Cursor user, I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic about this. So, so those are where I think things are going to go. So I think those guys, you know, like NVIDIA and Google and Microsoft, SpaceX, those guys are going to be the ones that are going to end up winning on all of this. Amazon can't make up what the hell they want to be from one day to the next. It depends on what Jeff Bezos' mood when he wakes up in the morning, I think. You know, but I think OpenAI and Anthropic, I don't think they've got staying power. I don't think.
Amazing. Before I end this conversation, just one last question I want to ask for students, for young professionals, for entrepreneurs. What skills do they need to basically thrive in a world where AI basically is becoming a part of every industry now? Yeah,
absolutely. Look, I've got 3 kids, right? So I've got one here, he's 14. I've got a 12-year-old girl, and I've got a 26-year-old son as well. He's in the Navy, so he's okay. He pilots ships, so I mean, like, you know, so ultimately he's not you know, he doesn't need to worry about AI taking his job because that's going a long way away. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. You still need people for that stuff, right? You know, but for my younger ones, certainly a bigger question, right? So I'm doing my best to get them educated on, like, here's what AI can do, but I'm also trying to make sure they understand that's what AI can do today. Don't be too attached to this, right? Understand that there's going to be a rapid increase in the pace of change, right? And I think for a lot of people, that's very uncomfortable. A lot of people like, I know what I know. I got my university education. I'm going to go to this path, and I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to be a financier, or I'm going to be a banker. That stuff's all great, but AI is going to impact every piece of that, right? So right now, I think the most important things that anybody can learn right now, critical thinking, right? Understand good process is another one. Understand that. Like, so if you're going to take, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, computer science is dead, software engineering is dead. No, it's not. There's a bit of an earthquake right now that people are kind of getting through, but when the dust settles, people who understand how things are built never go out of style, right? I will relate a little story to you that I think might help, right? I got into the AI stuff, building my own stuff. I hadn't built software since I was at Adobe, like, God, 30 years ago almost, right? So things have changed a little bit, right? And when I started doing this, you'd see all the guys on Instagram and whatever else, like, hey, bro, we're going to go and make a code overnight. We're going to make an application, sell for millions. Woo, right? And, I'm looking at these kids and going, wow, that sounds great. Is AI really that good? No, it's not, right? Oh, we can do it on Vercel and Supabase. Really? You're going to get that through an enterprise onboarding program? I have a 700 questionnaire that I need to answer about security and how good my applications are and how secure they are. You think your vibe coding bra even knows what that looks like? Can he answer those questions about Supabase or Vercel? No. All right. Not a chance. Okay. And good for all these guys who make these little apps to get them up on the Play Store or on the App Store. Good for them. Like, I mean, they're making awesome. I think it's great. But there's a big difference between making toys and making real tools. And I think that's a really big differentiator. For me, I built them with my first one. It's called Legion. If you go to onyxlegion.ai, you can go try it out there. It's amazing. We've all heard of this term of LLM council kind of thing. Mine looks prettier and it works really well. It's nice. All right. But when I built it, I got all that functionality working in 2 weeks. I was like, wow, it looks great. That's what I wanted to do. Getting it bulletproof so that it wasn't going to fail on people. Getting it bulletproof so that it didn't break. It didn't have edge cases. It was properly tested. And mine's entirely hosted on GCP. It hits every single standard. It meets all of your accessibility standards for the state of California. It's AAA WCAG, right? So blind people or visually impaired people can use it. Deaf people can use it. All that stuff. Well, guess what? If you don't do that, you can't sell it in California. There's a lot of states you can't sell it. All these vibe coding, think about that stuff. Is it hardened? Yeah, mine thing has been hardened. I did a penetration test on it to make sure it worked right. Like nobody's getting in and stealing your data. And I can prove it to you. These guys, whatever. So understanding process and the layers that go into building a proper tool that is going to be used, especially in the enterprise. You want to make a serious tool, vibe coding, get out of here. If you want to go do that for prototyping, great, awesome, fantastic, great for ideation. But you better get your act together and understand how infrastructure really works. Understand what you need to make this happen. So critical thinking skills, proper engineering skills that teach you fundamental ordering of information and how to do things in good process never go away, ever. That's what I would suggest if anyone's going to take that stuff. That'd be my thing. Yeah.
I'm sure that they should learn something from this, Michael.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much, Michael. I have to say that you have a unique perspective. It's because of your decades of experience in SureStep and now Onyx AI Labs. So yeah, I cannot thank you. I'm running out of words. I'll say, thank you so much for sharing your vision, your insights about AI. What you feel. Pleasure to have you here, Mike.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Michael.
No problem. Like I said, I really appreciate the time and the fact that you reached out. And I know it took a little bit of persistence. I know I'm a little bit hard to pin down sometimes, but
no. But thank you for saying yes.
But yeah, I mean, pleasure to be here. You've been great, and like I said, if this helps people in some way, that's wonderful.
There's a lot to learn from this podcast, I'll say, and every minute that you give is important because I know you're doing a lot of things, and still you came here. I'll say thank you so much for your time, Michael.
You're very welcome.
I respect. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.